Many communities in Nigeria have become vulnerable to violent clashes and attacks. What's worse is that it is difficult to seek justice because they cannot quantify or prove the degree of losses sustained. Also, most of them do not know how to use the early warning signs like increase in hate or dangerous speech, an ethnic or religious group suddenly leaving or entering your community in large numbers, cattle rustling or burning of farmlands, attempts to drive people from their homes, increase in violence by armed forces or militants, a sudden withdrawal of security agents. All sound familiar? If your community has suffered violence in recent years, or you sense some imminent danger, then your community can be referred to being vulnerable to violence or atrocities. What are atrocities, you may ask? Though difficult to define, it is generally agreed that they are extremely wicked or cruel acts which often involve physical violence or injuries. The good news is, you can get help. What many people do not realize is that violence rarely happens suddenly. There is usually a build-up of tension and hostility that suggests it is likely to occur. That is why it is important to build an effective community-based early warning system to prevent atrocities. So if you belong to a vulnerable community, rather than panic, all you need to do is to learn the basic steps to take before, during, and after violent attacks in order to prevent or minimize the effect of violent conflicts in your community. There are also simple tips to collecting evidence that will help you seek justice for the atrocities committed against your community. You may ask, who should be involved in early warnings for your community? I say, not only the community leaders, but also vulnerable members of the society should all be engaged in community early warning efforts. Everyone has a part to play. What to do before an attack occurs? 1. You need to keep very careful records of the state of things before, during, and after violence breaks out in your community. This is called documentation, and it typically involves keeping a record of every individual in your community, male, female, adults, and children. Records should include name, age, occupation, phone number, and photographs where available. Keeping a record of properties and their owners within the community. This includes numbers and types of houses, businesses, public properties like schools, hospitals, and so on. Taking pictures of different sites across your community so that you can compare changes should violence occur. Keeping a copy of these records at another location outside your community, preferably in both printed and electronic copies, and remember to update them periodically. 2. Prepare a safety plan. This will help your community prevent a likely attack or an impact of one. Your plan should look like this. During peace times, meet with the key security officials in charge of your district. For example, the DPO in charge of police in your area, or the head of civil defense, or the head of military command station near you, to discuss how best to communicate early warning signs, sensitive information, and threats of violence. If for some reason you do not trust the security agencies in your community, get in touch with your supervisors and make sure to share the same information with them or a neutral body like the National Human Rights Commission or the Human Rights NGO for them to follow up. Also, keep an updated list of telephone numbers of key persons, security agencies, NGOs so that they can help you in case of an attack. Ensure that the head of every household has the emergency numbers and knows who to call if they sense an upcoming attack. In addition, encourage each family to develop a plan of how and when to flee and where to meet should they become separated in a crisis. Everyone should also prepare a survival kit. A survival kit should be as light as possible, containing only essential items like a phone with a recharge card, power banks, keg of water, essential drugs and disinfectants, dry instant foods, blankets or wrappers, a transistor radio, and so on. What to do during an attack? In the event that a violent attack occurs in your community, the most important thing to do is to try to get yourself to safety. If you can grab your survival kit as you make your way out of the vicinity, then, once you have found a safe place to hide, start calling the emergency numbers you have saved to report the situation. After an attack. Once the attack is over, you will need to take a register of affected persons and properties. Then, write a detailed account of how the attack occurred by taking note of description of attackers as much as possible. When and where did the attack take place? The attacker's entry and exit point. The type of weapons used. Type of transportation used. What do you think caused the attack? How many people are affected? Who responded to the attack? How many victims the neighboring hospitals treated? What types of wounds were they treating? How many people died? How many are admitted? How many have permanent disabilities? How many people died and buried? How many are missing? Also try to collect as much evidence as you can find, including bullet shells or weapons used. In collecting visual evidence of the attack, make sure to take pictures and videos as soon as possible, before the site of the attack is cleared up or tampered with. Once this is done, you must preserve the evidence in a safe location. You can send pictures and videos to a reliable email address and save copies of them on a computer. Also, try not to send videos and pictures via WhatsApp so you do not lose information on when and where they were taken. If you have done this successfully, you would have gone a really long way in assisting the law enforcement to track down the attackers. Finally, you should know that even in the midst of violent conflicts, your rights must be protected by the government. It is the government's responsibility to respect your human rights and protect you from harm during armed conflicts, provided you are not actively involved in violence. The government has a primary responsibility to ensure that your life is not taken by anyone, you have easy access to healthcare at all times, you are treated with dignity at all times and under all circumstances, you are protected from being displaced or forced to leave your home or community, you are kept safe from attacks, you are not sexually harassed or molested by anyone, your right to make your own decision is respected and protected, your right to earn a living is preserved. If you need any information or wish to report cases of attacks and rights violation, you may contact any of the following: Global Rights, National Human Rights Commission (NHRC), the Nigeria Police Force Complaint Response Unit (CRU), Nigerian Army Human Rights Desk. Demand your right today.